Hey there, folks. Jordan Chariton live. Status Coup right here in the United Corporations of America. I hope everybody's having a lovely day in these trying times. Hopefully, good weekend plans as we're already at Thursday. Boy, what a show. What a show. But we're going to be joined by Steve Grumbine, who's coming over now. And at 6 o'clock, so in an hour from now, I am excited. We are going to be premiering Right Wing Insanity Report. Let me repeat, Right Wing Insanity Report, hosted by Tina Desiree Berg. So that's going to be a new weekly show on Status Coup, where Tina is going to be digging deep into the latest in right-wing insanity. It'll be half serious, and I'd say maybe half mockery. So don't go anywhere, because we're going to be airing that right after this, right here on Status Coup. And Tina's been co-hosting with me for a while, so excited. She'll be having her own show here once a week on Thursdays. So lot to discuss. You have Pramila Jayapal saluting Joe Manchin. With progressives like this, who needs enemies, right? We're also going to have a popular TikToker on, because some big TikTok hosts are on a campaign against Amazon, which I am very, very excited about. So we're going to be having a popular TikToker on in about a half hour to talk about the People Over Prime campaign, to get Amazon to stop its union busting and to actually do something for workers. By the way, just a little public service announcement. I am currently working on getting interviews with railroad workers, because there might be a massive railroad workers strike happening soon, as well as healthcare workers on strike right now, mental health care workers. Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers are on strike right now. 2,000, big strike in Northern California. So working on getting interviews with them too. Smash that like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the live stream. More people that press like, the more people that will see this very broadcast. So we got to start with the latest in the Trump raid. Because there was some interesting stuff released today. Nothing major, but some interesting stuff. We are joined by Steve Grumbine without his 1980s wig, which we're going to be. By the way, folks, I know it's a summer, but you better start penciling in Sundays at 2 o'clock Eastern, because you will get an MMT rock concert like you have never seen before. You know what, Steve? We're going to get to the Trump stuff. Don't go anywhere. But we got to play this clip, because I actually watched your show in full and was so informed, but more importantly, entertained. Colin, give us a quick recap of Steve.
And Mr. Biden, what exactly is it that you think my brother here got wrong? First of all, why in the hell is your Federal Reserve raising interest rates again and again and again? Why are you doing it? And why exactly are you all trying to lay off people? You're sitting there ramping up all this hiring, but in fairness, most of those jobs are going to people getting their second job. I know what I think's happening. I think you guys got tired of us saying no to your shitty jobs during the pandemic, and now you're clawing it back. You cut spending. You reduced the deficit. You rose interest rates up. You're making it harder and harder on everybody that isn't loaded up in the stock market. And now you're going to let student debt go through too? What the fuck is going on? Oh, I'm not allowed to say it to the president. What the fuck is going on, Mr. President? This is insane.
I know you got to be frustrated. I know. I can taste it. We have almost 1,785,000, don't hold me the exact number, I'll get the number, 700 and some thousand have had debt forgiven, their whole debt forgiven because of their work, working in either as teachers or other means by which they qualify. And we continue to make that easier. Secondly, I am considering dealing with some debt reduction. I am not considering $50,000 debt reduction, but I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness.
So that's just a small taste. You got to watch the whole thing. It's up on the channel now. And we will have that again Sunday at 2:00 Eastern. Props to Colin. There's a lot of editing that goes on behind the scenes. But I'm digging it. I'm digging it. So thank you, Steve. All right, let's start. Let's start with the latest. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but there was a hearing today where for a judge to decide whether to release the full affidavit. So legal terms, and smash that like button, share the live stream. Super chats are welcome. We'll read them at the end. In legal jargon, the search warrant was released, which listed the crimes they're investigating. But the affidavit is the meat of it. The affidavit for the search warrant would give us the goods on what evidence they presented to the judge of possible crimes, witnesses, potential witnesses, all of that. It's pretty, I mean, from what I know, unheard of for them to release an affidavit for a search warrant, not only because it would hurt their investigation, but it also would hurt the possible defendant. In America, I mean, we don't really have a true rule of law, but you don't want to release all the goods because what if the defendant is innocent? You don't want to tar and feather that possible defendant with all this information. But a judge released some things today, nothing major. Let me read just this CNN article. Judge sets up possible release of redacted affidavit justifying Mar-a-Lago search. U.S. Magistrate Judge Bruce Reinhardt set in motion on Thursday the possible public release of heavily redacted versions of a heavily redacted version of the affidavit for the Mar-a-Lago for the search at Mar-a-Lago. Judge plans to hear more from the Justice Department by next week about how extensively investigators want to keep confidential the documents that describe the investigative steps and methods leading to the need for the search. So, Steve, if they release this, the redactions 100% will be witnesses, because you don't want the witnesses to be. I mean, I don't know if you've watched The Sopranos, but they'll try to get to the witnesses, try to get them to recant whatever they've given the prosecutors at the Justice Department. They would obviously want to redact the FBI agents that were involved in the search. They'd want to redact any evidence that they provided or evidence they have of possible crimes. Pretty much the DOJ would try to redact the whole thing, most likely. But there was some interesting stuff released today. This is the tweet from Hugo Lowell, Colin. Unsealed Trump Mar-a-Lago search warrant application cover sheet offers the DOJ's description of potential crimes, willful retention of national defense information, concealment or removal of government records, and obstruction of a federal investigation. So let me read just a little bit of this affidavit that came out today. I'm just going to go, hold on, page 3, Colin. Application for a warrant by telephone or other reliable election means. The basis for the search under federal R crime P, blah, blah, blah. Evidence of a crime, contraband, fruits of crime, or other items illegally possessed. So, yeah, I mean, it's a continuation, kind of an expansion of what we found out last week, which was he's under investigation for violations of the Espionage Act, potential mutilation of documents, concealment. But overall, to me, on one hand, I don't want to get ahead of the game because this is America, wealthy white billionaire, or we think a billionaire, probably not really a billionaire. But again, the DOJ has now put forward multiple documents, because these documents they agreed could be released today, showing that they have some form of evidence, not only that he mishandled classified information, which is like what the right wing is screaming about. What about Hillary? But that he somehow tried to conceal it, falsified documents. So what are your thoughts on what was released today?
At this point in time, I'm trying to figure out what actually happened, because from what I understand, the last day of his presidency, he went on a declassification spree. And who knows? I'm not an expert on these kind of legal matters, but the fact is that they clearly have found something that they think is missing, and they're after it. They're trying to find it. So as far as the affidavit, it's so redacted and there's so little actual information. I really am eager to see what comes out, if it's even legible, if you can even make heads or tails of a heavily redacted affidavit. I'm very interested in seeing that. That's where I think you're right. The meat comes in. I don't think there's a whole lot that came out today.
Yeah, and I don't think even if they release it, even if they release more, because now it's been punted to next week, I mean, I could only use what was released from Flint, Michigan, which I've covered for years. It was the parts that you'd actually learn anything were all redacted by the governor. So I think whatever is going to come out, they're not going to. I don't think a judge would allow unredacted what the actual documents are. Like, are they nuclear programs, or what evidence they had? So I don't know, but judges are humans. Obviously, this judge has been attacked as he was donated to the Democratic Party. He was involved in Epstein stuff. So maybe he'll want to release more. I don't know. But I will say, put aside, the FBI is bad and all this stuff. You can't release anything that would even give a hint of who the witnesses are, because this is the Trump family. This is the Trump real estate empire that, if you grew up in New York, they were in bed with the mafia. They will, I'm not saying try to get to the witnesses like Sopranos style, like off them, but they will 100%, if they knew who the witnesses were, try to get them to recant. That I could tell you, I believe would happen. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But again, I think not enough people are asking the right questions about this. First of all, this whole, he declassified things with a wave of the wand, that's not real. Colin, I actually have an article about that in the live stream doc, if we can go to it. This CNN did a piece on this. I guess they spoke to like 18 former Trump officials who called it ridiculous, ludicrous, a complete fiction. Former Trump officials say his claim of a standing order to declassify is nonsense, and that never happened. So I think Trump, the excuses have kind of evolved. First he said there was no classified information there. Then he said, oh, well, my people just kind of put shit in a box. I had nothing to do with it. Then he's saying the FBI planted stuff there. So it's just kind of, as the Trump turns, I'm getting the emails rapid fire. He's raising $1 million a day now off of this from, MAGA Nation and the cult. But what I do think is important, again, maybe I'll be proved naive. I really find it hard to believe. Sure, you could say things are politicized. I have a very hard time believing that the FBI would have went in there and the DOJ would have signed off on it and a judge would sign off on it, if not only that he had classified information, but they think he's doing something with it. They have reason to believe that he is actually doing something nefarious with it. And that's where the witnesses come in. The other thing, Steve, lawyers for Trump certified to the DOJ that everything had been returned. So originally, the National Archives kindly asked Mr. President, can you give us back our classified information? Trump stonewalled or whatever. Then he was subpoenaed. So again, they didn't just go in commando style. They did less aggressive measures. He didn't honor the subpoena, obviously, but his lawyers certified that all the classified material had been returned. Why I think that's important, unless you're like a Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell kind of lawyer, most lawyers don't want to commit federal crimes because, like, lying to the FBI or the Department of Justice is a crime. I believe that it's possible these lawyers were misled. And the going theory is the lawyer is who ratted him out. One of the lawyers is who ratted him out and is the informant, because who else would know where these documents are? Either Jared Kushner and Ivanka are turning or lawyers for him. But why I think that's important, I find it extremely hard to believe they would take this unprecedented step. They're not that scared of Trump running again. Frankly, I think the Democrats want Trump to run again because it's probably the only person senile Joe even has a chance against. I think the media wants Trump to run against. You see CNN, you see MSNBC's ratings since Trump's been off Twitter and out of the White House. So I don't know. Is it the biggest story in America? No, but I'm very curious. I've watched enough espionage thrillers. I'm very curious to know the mishandling of classified documents, whatever. I think Hillary should have been indicted. So I think Trump should be indicted. But I feel this is Donald Trump, and I feel like they have evidence he was trying to do something with certain documents. So we'll see what happens. But what I really want to get into about it, Steve, you and I have talked a lot in the past about how, and smash that like button. We got 300 people watching, so we need every single person to press like. By the way, do your patriotic duty. Subscribe to Real Progressives. It's in the description. Steve has his own channel. It's great content that YouTube buries, just like they bury this channel. So make sure you subscribe to Real Progressives. But you and I have talked about for a while, when you have 40 years of neoliberalism, when people are working 2 to 3 jobs, when people they elected to be progressive and fight don't, it kind of creates the situations for anger, which sometimes breeds violence. And you are starting to see a real expansion and explosion of violence. And in this case, it seems to be of the right-wing form. But this Trump raid, there is more and more violence. There's violence, white supremacy, violent conspiracy movements. Colin, if we could show, hold on. The first tweet, we need to grow our teeth back, that video.
We got to remember, we got to never, ever, ever forget the kind of damage the viceroy up at the House did to this nice patch of land, small town Minnesota, and we need to grow our teeth back fast. So part of those teeth in this particular set of terms is voting with a ballot before we have to vote with bullets. Because at the end of the day, when people don't believe that their elections are stable, they don't believe that police will protect them, they stop using the democratic, of any kind of method. We are a democratically elected constitutional republic, for anybody confused by that. But people stop using that particular method when it looks like it's too corrupt to work. If it's too corrupt to work, nobody wants to participate. Who wants to participate in a game that seems like you're just going to lose it? And so we have to bring back that faith, and we have to come out and vote. We have to vote just like they're throwing Molotovs up in Uptown. We have to vote just like they burned down buildings for 4 weeks straight. We have to vote as hard as they went out and did that. In 2020, I was on the ground in the riots. In 2020, I strapped on plates and a rifle, and I stood in front of a nice, quiet tobacco shop right across the 3rd Precinct. I stood in front, and I watched 3 young men from a Middle Eastern family, I think they're from Pakistan, running a family business, trying to live the American dream, with machetes and swords, trying to keep the loot.
So this guy's talking about voting with bullets. He's a Minnesota state Senate candidate. You obviously have, Colin, if you could pull it up. This happened in your neck of the woods on Friday. A Pennsylvania man was arrested for threatening to slaughter the FBI. I sincerely believe that if you do work for the FBI, then you deserve to die. I'm going to fucking slaughter you. So that happened on Friday in Pennsylvania. We know somebody in Ohio attacked the FBI and started shooting. He was killed. I also want to play this clip of Congressman Scott Perry, who apparently investigators over January 6th took his cell phone because he was known to have talked to Trump either before January 6th or the day of January 6th. I don't know which one. But let's hear what he had to say on one of these right-wing channels.
Every single American needs to be looking at this point, unfortunately, over their shoulder, because the federal government is coming for them. Every single little thing that you might have done, unfortunately, we're now at the place where it was said in the past, you show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That seems to be the American we live in right now.
Yeah.
Look over your shoulder. This is all not even coded stuff. This is bat signal to crazies. And lastly, Steve, I want to show you this one. This isn't directly Trump related, but it's all the same shit. This libs of TikTok, I know, has, been kind of a hotbed thing. Glenn Greenwald and other people like to defend her. She's I guess somebody in Brooklyn who has a channel that goes just all day, puts out shit about transgender people and gay people, and basically puts a target on people's back. Well, now after she put out that Boston Children's Hospital was doing gender affirming surgeries, or basically surgeries for transgender people, now that hospital, which by the way treated burn victims of the Boston Marathon bombing, gives free care to children. So this is a good place. Free care for children. They have been deluged after this libs of TikTok idiot put this out there with death threats. Far-right extremists are threatening to execute doctors at Children's Hospital. I'll read a little bit of this. Boston Children's Hospital said on Tuesday that its staff has faced a flood of violent threats and harassment sparked by a false claim made by the viral libs of TikTok Twitter account. The account, run by Brooklyn real estate agent Shaya Reichik, tweeted on August 11th that Boston Children's Hospital is now offering gender-affirming hysterectomies for young girls. The claim has been widely debunked by fact-checking groups, but as is typical in anti-trans rhetoric, facts rarely matter, and the claims were widely shared on right-wing social media accounts. In response, the hospital and its staff have faced a torrent of abuse. In response to commentary last week of our gender multi-specialty services, Boston Children's Hospital has been the target of a large volume of hostile internet activity, phone calls, and harassing emails, including threats of violence towards our clinicians and staff. The hospital did not specify where the threats were coming from, but Vice News has uncovered some violent threats posted on far-right and extremist platforms targeting the doctors. Quote, long past time to start executing these doctors, a member of a pro-Trump message board, formerly known as the Donald, wrote under a copy of a video featuring a doctor from the hospital. The message board is the same one whose members last week doxed and made violent threats against the judge. I could go on. Steve, you get the point. This country is a powder keg. I don't want to blame it all on Donald Trump, but I will say the Republican Party, that at least for like 5 minutes after January 6th came out and like kind of condemned Donald Trump, they're fanning the flames here. I mean, these right-wingers going on Fox News, look over your shoulder. You got the YouTube right-wingers like Steven Crowder, Charlie Kirk, Tim Pool, all, this is war. I mean, I see it. I've looked in some of these chats and it is a fucking sewer. And it wouldn't be a big deal unless it led to violence, which I think it is going to lead to more violence.
Yeah. I look at it like this, Jordan, to be honest with you. The underlying problems that we're facing today are so severe. They're so severe. Don't let headline chasing from the mainstream media distract you. You've done great work going to West Virginia, done great work going to Ohio, done great work going to Flint, done great work going throughout the impoverished regions of Philadelphia, going to these encampments. That's what the real story is right now. Okay. And to me, when I see something like this, when you here's what is so troubling. The right wing is so disgusting in terms of what it values and what it tries to do. But the underlying angst and hatred and disgust with a government that 9 times out of 10 lies to us, 9 times out of 10 literally pits us against each other as well, has done so much to make this even possible. The way I view Donald Trump is if you have a shaken up 2-liter bottle of really, really hot soda on a 100-degree day, Donald Trump's the guy that just kind of wiggled the lid so that it would explode. But it was already shaken up and it was already sitting there in the hot sun, ready to blow up. The problem here is this. Many of us on the left see things in a very similar way, but different, very different. We see it as we don't believe in our voting system. We don't believe we have fair primaries. We don't feel like government listens to us. We don't feel like our needs are being met, and we're angry as hell too. And so while simultaneously they're chasing after Donald Trump, which he may very well be guilty of horrible crimes and need to be prosecuted, I think the real fundamental issue here that I hope we don't lose sight of is that the reason why there is so much disinformation and there is so much anger and division is because we don't talk about the real problems. We skip to them and we go and catch the shiny object out of the corner of our eye and follow that into the abyss. I'm hoping that they get this thing, whatever this thing they're doing with Donald Trump, I hope they get it done and they get it over with and they do it quickly, because the powder keg underneath of it is not about this. It's been years in the making, many, 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 many years in the making. And so to ignore that and to put it on this, it's only going to give them that much more power, if you will, that much more credibility when they go after Joe Biden, they go after Hunter Biden, they go after Hillary Clinton, they do all the things that they've done in the past, because there's people on the left that absolutely hate what they've done too. So now all of a sudden you see all these strange bedfellows coming together, people that have nothing in common other than hatred for being lied to. Okay. We're completely different. Couldn't be more different, but angry nonetheless. And so I hope that whatever they just did, whatever they're going to do, is done quickly, because there's real serious issues at play. The student debt stuff that's coming up is going to directly impact millions of people. You're talking about lack of health care and more pandemic type stuff still going on. And they're talking about cutting funding for vaccinations and cutting funding for all the other stuff. Real serious stuff is coming, man. Real serious stuff is coming. Stuff that's going to affect you and me. Stuff that's going to affect our children. Okay. Schools being screwed up. All the shit that goes on in these local communities in support of this crap. This is very, very serious. And Donald Trump, once again, I just hate giving him another minute of my time. That fucker has done more, not even him so much as the specter of Donald Trump has done more to serve to keep us out of staying focused on a Green New Deal, focused on getting rid of student debt, focused on Medicare for all, focused on literally bringing a left-wing rise through unions and so forth. I mean, this to me is the bigger story here. And I think that as long as they allow us to stay with our eyes diverted that way, I think we're going to see a lot of problems come up in November. And I think we're going to see a lot of problems going forward, because all the austerity baked into the world through interest rates and reduction in spending and intentionally trying to get people laid off to keep inflation down. This is the Nauru stuff, the Phillips curve, Say's law, and all that other nonsense. That, my friends, is the real story. And for me, it's really hard because I want to go after God. I wish I could be a normie so bad. I wish I could get outraged at Donald Trump the way that everybody else is able to, because I would fit in with everyone so much better. The problem is I'm so focused on the pain and suffering I feel today, and that millions of other people that, you know, we hear from, we see, we talk to, that we've experienced, that we've watched from your channel, all the work you've done, the great work that you've done. I think to myself, holy fuck, this guy is really hurting a lot more people than we know. And it's not even necessarily him. It's all the apparatus that's trying to turn our head that direction so that we stop paying attention to student debt and the other stuff. That to me is the greatest fear I have, is that the very struggling people get left behind and lost and forgotten about, because all eyes are once again back on Donnie Tiny Hands and the bad comb over in the belly and the Dicky Doo and all the rest that goes with it, and the orange Cheetolini and the bad, you know, suntan and the white eyes and the red face, all the other shit that goes with this. It kills me, because that son of a bitch is sucking the oxygen out of people's tanks who have nothing to give, who have nothing to give. And that motherfucker is still, once again, the star of the show, stealing away the focus that needs to be on those people that don't have a pot to piss and don't have family to rely on, don't have anything going good in their lives. They're sitting there suffering, and they're going to once again be like, excuse me, sir, we've got something more important to talk about, as they walk and step over them and just leave them laying there to die. That is my fear. That is my concern.
I have a rebuttal, but it will have to wait. Rebuttal, but it will have to wait. We'll talk about it after this next segment. Steve, you're definitely too old, and I'm getting there, to be down with the TikTokers. You know, I just got on TikTok for Status Coup. We're
I'm
growing.
doing all these wigs and memes. I mean, come on, I'm a child and I fart too.
You're a little expired to be on TikTok, but Status Coup is on TikTok now, so go follow us. But there's a lot of cool young people on young people. I mean, I'm 35. I'm not that old, but a lot of great young folks on TikTok. Really captivating, shorter form content for the low attention span society we live in. And right now, they're going at Amazon, which I love. Because we need more popular people with a big platform on TikTok to be going after Amazon and the rest of them. Colin, before we bring on the guest, can we show her video? This is part of the new campaign where a bunch of TikTokers with big audiences are coming together to demand that Amazon stop the union busting, stop the exploitation of workers, stop them working in sweltering heat, pay them a fair wage. Let's take a look at the People Over Prime campaign.
TikTokers are turning against Amazon. True. Amazon is pouring millions of dollars into TikTok to prevent creators from speaking out against their brutal working conditions and union busting. But spoiler alert, it won't work. Introducing People Over Prime, a group of over 70 TikTok creators with a combined following of over 51 million people. We know the power that our platforms hold, and with that knowledge, we are refusing to monetize our platforms for Amazon, including any direct sponsorships and removing our Amazon storefronts, until the demands of Amazon workers are met, including better pay, better working conditions, and a complete halt of all union busting. Workers are enduring 10-hour shifts with no water breaks under 145-degree heat. They're being fired for trying to form a union. As TikTok creators, we are standing in solidarity with these workers. So let's see how big People Over Prime can get. I am challenging Dylan, Victoria, and Connor to sign the People Over Prime pledge. If you're watching, please challenge your favorite creators to do the same. And let's see how far this can go.
Awesome. Joining me now, Elise Joshi. Did I pronounce it right?
Joshi, yes, correct. Hi.
So you are on TikTok and have a nice following there. So that was you. And I'm really interested in this because I covered the Staten Island workers organizing for a year before they won. And it's pretty, it's mostly a lot of young workers, but obviously kind of mixes in older workers. But what kind of got you involved? Because obviously Amazon owns Twitch. Amazon owns a lot. They own the Washington Post too, basically. What got you involved, and tell us more about this campaign?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, as you know, the labor movement's had one of its most successful years in a long time, and it's been a joy to watch. And Gen Z for Change has been as involved as we possibly can be, strategizing on how to use digital tools in our network to make a genuine difference on the ground, not just likes and comments and shares, but actually making a tangible difference. And we did it with Starbucks. We sent over 100,000 false applications to union busting Starbucks locations that were hiring scabs, and also 40,000 false applications to a union busting lawyer position at Starbucks. And so we've been pretty involved with the SB workers campaign, and it's been pretty inspirational seeing Gen Z baristas organize. But we've had our eyes set on Amazon for a very long time and have been trying to see how we can use TikTok to do the same thing. And so that's how People Over Prime came about. We knew how much power that we had as creators, and we knew that Amazon knows that as well. They hired about 5,000 influencers for their Prime Day, and they've been courting influencers on weekend getaways in Mexico. And we're trying to take that power back. That's what People Over Prime is, and try and show solidarity with Amazon workers who are not being courted in Mexico getaways. They are experiencing extremely brutal working conditions and are honestly just demanding a livable working environment and a livable wage. So that's the gist of what we're doing and what our goals are.
And Amazon apparently has responded. I'll show this. It's what you would expect from Amazon. But Colin, if you could put it up. The company has said that its pay, which starts at $17 an hour, is industry leading, and that its injury rates are not as high as they appear. That's a bunch of bullshit. Asked about the TikTok campaign, Amazon spokesperson issued the following statement. We've invested billions of dollars in new operations, safety measures, technologies, and other innovation solutions that protect our employees. We've expanded our global workplace health and safety team to more than 8,000 employees across the world who use Amazon's innovation technology, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to read the rest. So what's interesting, they're talking about all this money they're putting in and technology and all this PR speak. I mean, there's been more in Jersey and another place. Amazon workers are now dying on the job. At a Jersey facility a few weeks ago, after a worker died on the job, Amazon told the workers, get back to work, and just basically covered the guy. And the guy was left there for like 45 minutes. I don't know what happened at this other place, but another worker died on the job. As I covered last year, you have Amazon workers who inside the warehouse, it's like 100 degrees. They're working with nothing more than fans. So what has been the response to your campaign? Because the media generally, at least the mainstream media, doesn't particularly like casting Amazon, or they'll do stories that kind of slightly report on Amazon, but there's never actually accountability. What has been your response? Because I know mainstream media has been talking to you.
Oh yeah, so the visibility that we've gotten on this campaign is actually pretty incredible, and I think it's a large part due to the fact that we've got mainstream creators involved with this campaign, and the mainstream media is often similar to Amazon. You know, they don't listen to workers on the ground, but they will listen to these popular TikTokers who are part of the marketing model of Amazon and pretty essential to it, and so if this is the way that we can bring light to the Amazon labor union, then that's great. But I mean, like I said, this is meant to be worker centered, and I'm really glad that the people who have been watching the news and watching our campaign grow have been, focusing on what our demands are, and our demands are solely based on what ALU's demands are. We have not influenced it at all, and I'm very proud of that. But yeah, so there's been incredibly kind responses, and people are pretty amped up about this, and I'm glad that it's being covered on mainstream news for the first time in a while.
Steve, you want to jump in?
I think it's great. I mean, I'm not a TikTok. You can tell by the gray beard that I stray long form, but I just think it's fantastic. When I don't know, well, you can't be 30 years old. And when I was that age, I swear all I was doing was drinking and smoking weed and hanging out. I wasn't doing anything useful like what you're doing. And gray hair, hats off to you. I think it's amazing. Awesome.
And last question, I think one of the biggest problems, and I know that Amazon workers who are organizing dealt with this, is a lot of consumers that buy Amazon have not a clue how they get their yoga mat in 2 hours. And they, it's kind of like out of sight and out of mind. And a lot of young people use Amazon. I mean, my brother, I won't get into him, but I always argue with him. What's been your response from young people, like maybe not like diehard TikTokers, but like people who might not have known much of this stuff about Amazon? Are you getting response from people who a light bulb's kind of going off?
Yeah, what we've seen with the labor movement is, outside of people over prime, people finally realizing that there's labor going into the products that they're buying. I've been walking into Starbucks stores and just talking to the workers there, and discussing, hey, are you thinking about unions? And it's been incredible. And I think more and more people are like that. When we were sending false applications to Scab hiring Starbucks locations, people were involved in sending those false applications, no matter how far away they were from the Starbucks store. And I think that we're really cultivating a generation of young organizers who are realizing that the people who are, they're buying products from are real people who deserve a livable, thriving wage, who deserve to be under working conditions that they are a part of cultivating, and they have a say. And I think, it's just truly inspiring. And I'm seeing that myself through, comment sections. People are like, oh, I sent 100 false applications in 1 hour just while I was doing my homework. And it's really inspiring. I like to have optimism, because that's just, what keeps me going. And I think that I'm not lying to myself. There's a lot of optimism beyond TikTok, of young people finally establishing some class consciousness and trying to get involved themselves.
And before I
like
let you go, I'll just read the people over prime. The demands are, like you said, basically just propping up ALU's demands. So $30 an hour minimum wage, better working conditions, including 2 paid 30-minute breaks and an hour-long paid lunch break, better medical leave, additional paid time off, and eliminating productivity rates that requires workers to pick a certain number of items an hour, as well as peeing in water bottles and shitting in vans. That's not on there, but I'm just throwing that out there. Complete halt to all union busting tactics, including the union busting meetings, promising better pay and benefits to employees if they vote against the union, threatening with worse pay and benefits or termination to employees if they voted for the union, and addressing specific issue employees have. So thank you very much. We will tag you on TikTok. So give us, smaller creators on TikTok a tag. Yeah, we'll follow it.
Thank you so much. I had a blast being on here, and yeah, talk to you guys soon.
All right, take care. So that, by the way, Steve, that campaign, people could go, Colin, if you could put it in, it's peopleoverprime.com if you want to learn more. That comes with the good news that the National Labor Relations Board actually today ruled that Starbucks has to reinstate 7 workers they fired in Memphis, 7 organizers that they fired in Memphis. I don't know if it was the NLRB or a court, probably a court, ruled that Starbucks has to reinstate these workers they fired in Memphis. They've fired union organizers in a lot more places than Memphis, including Buffalo. So hopefully this is now going to be a domino where other people who lost their jobs for organizing get their jobs back. We also are seeing, I think I'm going to be interviewing folks tomorrow. 2,000 mental health care workers are on strike in Northern California at Kaiser Permanente, which is fairly corrupt. That company, that's a whole different thing. But they're on strike. So that's awesome. And I believe I'll be interviewing some folks from there. And not yet a strike, but we might have a strike coming up, a huge railroad worker strike.
Wow.
As Biden stuck his board in last minute to avoid a strike. So they have basically, there's a contract impasse. They're offering railroad workers more pay, but they're not really giving them any. Like literally, railroad workers in America right now do not have days off and are on call 24/7. It's insane. So freight workers, railroad workers, how you get your stuff, these people do not have like set days off and they're on call 24/7. So I'm hoping to interview some folks tomorrow involved with that. But Steve, before we get to the next topic, I think this is great because honestly, to me, this is slower than what I want, but it kind of gets us a little more towards aggressive, militant labor organizing. It starts with like creators, but hopefully it gets to young people being like, okay, yeah, we're going to stop buying Amazon. If you don't stop this union busting, if you don't give them a fair wage, better benefits, give them time to go to the bathroom rather than peeing in bottles, hopefully it leads to actual economic threats. Your thoughts?
I just talked to David Van Dusen, who is the president of the AFL-CIO in Vermont. And these guys have a 10-point plan, and they are hyping this thing up, and they are literally showing you the blueprint for how to organize and work both, within the electoral space by not just voting blue no matter who. And they are literally showing how it's done in Vermont. And you look at groups like Amazon, you look at groups like Starbucks, and you look at the John Deere, and you look at these other opportunities for labor organizing. I'm telling you right now, I agree 100%, Jordan. Without having a strong labor movement in this country, we just simply don't have the ability to organize collectively the way we need to. People are too distracted. They're too divided. They've got too many things in their head. So it's impossible to get them to lock in for anything meaningful like that without having that strength of the union. So I'm hoping to see much, much more of this. But again, I'm telling you right now, between Sarah Nelson, who has been out there from the airlines union, Joe Burns, obviously the gentleman I just spoke of, David Van Dusen, Liz Medina, others. There's a huge amount of people, obviously Christian Smalls and others. There is a tremendous push right now. And mind you, there's a huge vacuum to fill because we haven't had a labor movement in this country in most of my lifetime. The vast majority of my lifetime, we have seen unions completely decline. Under Reagan, it really started, and it's never slowed down since. They passed tons of laws, tons of other things to make not only organizing more challenging, but also to make actual direct union action more challenging, if not quote unquote illegal. So to see a rise and to see people saying, hell no, I'm not going to take it anymore, that is exactly what we need to see. And we need to see a hell of a lot more of it. So good on you, Jordan, bringing them on.
Absolutely. And quick, I just want to respond, and then we're going to move on to Pramila Jayapal saluting President Manchin, which is as vile as it comes. On the topic before her, here's why I think this matters, and it's not about Trump per se. Trump is Trump. I'd like to see him prosecuted, but that's not going to put the genie back in the bottle. The reason I think the right-wing hysteria and the violence matters is because from what I have seen, I've had the misfortune of covering, at this point, probably about 60 Trump rallies, Trump flag drops, Proud stuff with Proud Boys there, QAnon stuff, the whole thing.
They're insane.
Yeah, and I got the therapy bills to prove it, and the antidepressants. But why I think it matters, I do think there's a large percentage of people, you're right, that underneath it all, there is an economic reason for them getting suckered into this white supremacy or violent conspiracy. But there's also a lot of people that it's not economic. There's a very, very strong portion of not just MAGA, but the right wing, these white supremacist groups that are there. And I've seen it at the rallies because they want us back in 1960 or 50. Sure. And they don't like, they toss around woke, which is just code for, in my view, there's some stuff that's a little too much, like I won't get into it, but there's some stuff that has gone too far. But there's also stuff that is good that they just say is woke because they don't want, they believe like gay people should not have rights. In some cases, they believe gay people should not exist. In some cases, if it were up to them, maybe we should look at interracial marriage. If it were up to a lot of these people that show up at Trump rallies, this and that, transgender people would be quarantined, So my point in all this is we could address the economic root cause, but we also have to realize there's a growing number of people that are just either consciously or subconsciously bigots, and they're getting basically the bat signal, not just from Trump, but the whole echo chamber, the whole right-wing vortex, Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, Newsmax, Fox News, to basically eliminate the very little social progress we've had of the last 20 years. And I think as progressives, we have to do both. We have to focus on the economic root causes, because if you look back into the 1930s and 40s, Hitler rose in large part because Germany was destroyed and the government didn't do anything to help the people. That's what allowed somebody like Hitler to rise. So that's my rebuttal to that. But I think we agree mostly. I want to get to Pramila Jayapal because, frankly, with progressives like this, who needs enemies? Pramila Jayapal, who is the chairwoman of the Progressive Caucus, which is a joke. They let anybody in, including Chantel Brown, who defeated Nina Turner. Pretty soon they'll be letting, who knows who they'll let in. But she went on because she, instead of just owning the egg on her face for folding like a cheap tent and saying, actually we'll vote for this bipartisan infrastructure deal without the 3.5 trillion Build Back Better in tow. So she gave away all the leverage as soon as there was even a little pressure from the Democratic Party and media. Instead of owning the egg on her face, she's going on cheering this Inflation Reduction Act and saluting President Manchin. Colin, let's take a look.
I've always given the president credit for coming in with a vision that was big, bold, populist, and being willing to fight for it. And I would argue that the Progressive Caucus was probably his best friend on Capitol Hill in terms of selling this to the country, pushing for it, making sure we got legislation drafted and passed in the House. Many of those pieces that are in the Inflation Reduction Act came directly from the piece of legislation we drafted in the House. And as for Senator Manchin, I think it's a great thing that he was able to get to a place where he could be comfortable with moving some of these critical issues along and that he didn't give up. I give him a lot of credit for that. And I'm happy to have him in the Democratic family.
Steve, will you allow me to rant? If somebody lights your house on fire, do you invite them over for dinner the next night? Are you fucking out of your mind, Pramila Jayapal? Are you out of your mind? You're Biden's best friend? What did she say? His progressive vision? That vision of, I'm going to abandon a $15 minimum wage as soon as I fucking sit down for dinner in the White House? I'm going to abandon a public option, which was a fucking joke anyway? I'm going to abandon $2,000 checks. Just kidding. Police reform. We're going to give police $32 billion more. Medicare for all. Yeah, maybe in 20 years. And Joe Manchin, who, by the way, I was just on the road. That's the beauty. And thank you to the Status Coup members and viewers who fund our on-the-ground reporting. There are families pulling kids out of Little League right now because they don't have that child tax credit anymore because of salute your fucking Manchin. There are families that literally are having to ration medicine for their kids or not get groceries. I spoke with them on the road. So this Joe Manchin is in your Democratic family. He's the reason that the child tax credit expired because you wouldn't go on offense. You wouldn't actually hold the hostage. I mean, it's just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. And you want to know something? To be honest with you, I tweeted about it earlier and people said, well, Jordan, if we got rid of her as the chair, who would replace her? There's nobody better. Who's going to go in there? AOC? Rashida Tlaib? Just won re-election? Ilhan Omar? None of these people are willing to actually hold up political hostage. To be clear, YouTube, I'm not talking about a real hostage. This is an analogy, political. It's unbelievable. You are crediting someone who, as part of a historic climate provision, just forced through a dangerous natural gas pipeline called the Mountain Valley Pipeline that Biden isn't mentioning that. Schumer allowed this. Colin, if we could show it, activists got arrested today outside Chuck Schumer's office in New York because the Mountain Valley Pipeline and more drilling was snuck into this deal. Let's play that, Colin.
More dangerous projects in any neighborhood and community where they want without public inputs. As if it wasn't easy for them already. Additionally, it would give Joe Manchin more power to rubber stamp the Mountain Valley Pipeline in West Virginia, a project that neighboring communities have been fighting for years. And as fellow pipeline fighters and fossil fuel fighters, that fight is our fight too. So, Senator Schumer, you have personally expressed support of the fight against the North Brooklyn Pipeline by showing up to our rally in the past. But passing this legislation shows us your true face. This side deal with Manchin endangers our fight and numerous pipeline fights across the states and indigenous territories. You cannot say you support us and then sign a bill that would take away the voice of the public, get more environmental protections, and make it easier to pass more fossil fuel projects.
And several activists were arrested outside Chucky Sleaze's office today. Your thoughts? Because honestly, I've never gotten into Fraud Squad and all that because I'm a journalist and I'm not going to do that. But at this point, I don't really know how much stock you could put in. I'm not saying don't vote, But what I am saying is the progressives in Congress ain't going to do shit for you.
Well, I've been extraordinarily disappointed with everybody, MMTers, progressives, whoever, that have celebrated this quote unquote Inflation Reduction Act. Just start there before we even get down into the AOCs and squads and stuff like that. This thing should not be called the Inflation Reduction Act. It should be called the Deficit Reduction Act, because what it is doing is literally, number one, reducing the deficit. Reducing the deficit is austerity. Austerity is murder, because when you take money out of the economy, you make it so that the people at the bottom really starve and suffer. Okay, so that's what your Inflation Reduction Act does. It's really the Deficit Reduction Act. Okay, number one. Number two, it puts out like freaking electric vehicle credits out years ahead. It puts solar panel credits out years ahead. Most of these things are things that don't help anybody today. None of this is about inflation. The fact is that you've had massive amounts of gouging from the rich. They've already paid back the rich by raising interest rates, because rich people get money from interest rate hikes. That's what it is. It's about, how do we get rich people more money? Let's raise interest rates. There you go. So everything about this sucks big time. And so pardon me to anybody out there who had the audacity to carry that blue water for this bullshit bill. Number one, Build Back Better sucked to begin with, but this Inflation Reduction Act is putrid, and it gives a false positive that we've done something about the environment, that we've done something about inflation. The whole idea of negotiating a few prices on pharmaceuticals is a crock of shit, because you realize if Medicare could negotiate with some of the pharmaceutical prices, it could negotiate all the pharmaceutical prices. And why does that matter? Because when the government pays a price for anything, because it is the monopolist of the money creation, it is literally the price setter by doing that. So the money that the federal government pays is the inflation rate. So if government refuses to pay higher rates, then you don't have inflation. You have price gouging or a relative value story. So I'm trying to tell you that everything about this bill, everything about it sucks. So to see, now let's flash forward to all the people singing the praises about it. Pramila Jayapal singing the praises about it. This is about a November election. You're going to hear nothing but glorious things about the Deficit Reduction Act of 2022. Nothing but glory they're going to sing about it, but it's garbage. It not only doesn't really help the environment, it doesn't help inflation, and it's definitely going to be more pain for the poor. All right, flash forward. Talk about voting and talking about the squad and stuff like that. I'm telling you right now, we need to have candidates that are willing to be a one-term person, that are not trying to be lifelong careerists, that are willing to go in there for 4 years, 2 years, 6 years, whatever the term is, and absolutely light that son of a bitch on fire, to be willing to go in there and say all the truthful things and be a voice for the poor. Instead, we got a lot of sycophants out there, bad people making excuses for them. Don't make excuses. They're a public servant. They're not your leader. They're a public servant. Treat them as such. Make demands. If they don't meet them, then guess what? They're fucking up, because their job is to represent you. If they represent big business, if they represent moneyed interest, they're not your friend. I don't care what the letter in front of their name is. And there's some people out there that get very, very sensitive about me saying these things. But the fact is that I'm telling the truth. The tail of the tape tells you everything you need to know. Every time we vote for people, if they don't sit there and put it on the line, knowing what we're up against, they're not fighting the same battle we're fighting. They're not fighting the same battle we're fighting. And so to me, this idea of organizing beyond the electoral process with the unions, working with folks like the Vermont AFL-CIO, others that are embracing class struggle unionism, etc., that is the way to go. I mean, I'm just thoroughly disgusted by this whole bill and the celebration and the slobbering. The fact is, they just start celebrating about reducing the ITT, which was a scam school, that they wrote that bill off, and I think it was like 19 billion. They're running around celebrating this stuff. Folks, there's $2 trillion in student debt that have to be cut off. They have to be gotten rid of. Old people went back to school during the great financial crisis. Tons of people are sitting there strapped with huge amounts of debt, literally strapped like huge sacks of shit on their back. This is what needs to be done. And when I see Pramila sitting there praising Biden and praising Manchin, and it makes me disgusted. See, I stay focused on what I know. I don't sit there and bleed out into these. And what they're doing is a lie. They're celebrating something that is not something to be celebrated by you and I. Trust me on that.
You know, Steve, we will have to table this for another time because we have a new show premiering after this. So let me get to that. But the last thing I'll say on this, listen, he's not a god. Bernie Sanders, I respect everything he's done. You got the same vote that Joe Manchin has. You have the same vote that Kirsten Sinema has. You could have blocked this bill. You could have blocked this bill and said, I'm not signing the bill. Terrible impersonation. I'm not going to sign the bill unless a $15 minimum wage is in there. And if the parliamentarian doesn't like it, get rid of her. Go give her a turkey sandwich. Get rid of her. But I'm not going to sign the bill without a $15 minimum wage or a public option or paid sick leave. And Mr. Manchin, he'll have to deal. And you want to know something? If the Democrats want to beat the Republicans, you could pin it on me if you don't. But you got to put a foot in the sand, a line in the sand, and I'm not going to sign the bill. He could have done that. And you want to know something? He would have been vilified. But you want to know, at the end of the day, yeah, maybe tax credits for electric cars and stuff would have been good 10 years ago. That's not going to prevent London from burning. London was just on fire. It's not going to prevent the extreme heat waves. Story just came out today. By 2050, Midwest states, they're expecting temperatures to be 125 degrees at some points in Missouri and some other places.
That's the story. That's the story, brother. That's the story.
So the fact that, we can't even get Bernie to leverage some power, or at least huff and puff that he's going to block it. Couldn't even get that. And we could not get the squad. They all voted for this. Is there some provisions in there that are good? Yeah. But you got to get out of this thinking of, it's better than nothing. Well, the planet burning, the planet on fire, you can't really respond with it's better than nothing, because you want to know something? Now you're not going to be able to do something more, probably for 5 years at least. The Republicans, we think, are going to retake the House. You're not going to be able to get a real an addition added with Republicans in the House. 2024, who the hell knows? You could have President DeSantis or Trump. And even if Biden won re-election, you think they're going to go further than neoliberal tax credits? Not without elected progressives galvanizing the troops, activating the base, protesting. There should be an Occupy Wall Street style thing for climate outside the White House already.
Yes.
It's just
That's 100%.
Yes. With that said, a couple announcements. Number one, as always, Steve Grumbine. I know it's the summer. I know people want to be at the beach on Sunday or doing whatever you do. Put it in your calendar and smoke it. 2 o'clock Eastern. 2 o'clock Eastern on Sundays. That's 11 a.m. Pacific. Is Let's Get Ready to Grumble on Status Coup. We need all of you to watch. All of you should be tuning in. Sundays, who knows what wig or cheesy 1980s impersonation Steve will be rocking this Sunday. Let's Get Ready to Grumble. Coming up next here is the premiere of Right Wing Insanity Report with Tina Desiree Berg. Colin, jump on for a second. Tell people we think this should seamlessly work. But when we end this stream, it will go to her stream.
Yes, so the premiere is happening at 6:15 Eastern. And so basically whenever this stream ends, just stay here and you'll automatically be redirected to the premiere of her video. If you're not automatically redirected, usually a button appears on the video as soon as the live stream ends, and you just click that and it'll take you to the premiere.
And if all else fails and that doesn't work, come back in 10 minutes, 6:15 Eastern. We're premiering this. She's going to be speaking with a journalist who was attacked by anti-maskers. You and I were talking about violence. Mm-hmm. Also, she's going to have some funny spoofs on Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert. but serious stuff. It's going to be half serious, half funny. Tina's going to have a weekly show. Obviously, we have Steve on Sundays. Steve, tell the people where else they can find you.
Come to realprogressives.org. Go to our media drop down, and you will find my podcast, Macro and Cheese. And that releases every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And you can listen to it anytime. It's not a live feed. So please check it out. Believe me, there's 200 episodes in there, all of which are worth your time. You can also catch me Monday, Wednesday, Friday on The Rogue Scholar, which is a show I do at noon on our Real Progress in Action YouTube channel. And you can also catch me usually on Tuesday nights with Jordan right here.
And why so early on Sunday, Fiona? If you're sleeping till 2 o'clock Eastern, I want to have a conversation with you. Or if it's 11 a.m. Eastern. I mean, yeah, I guess you could sleep till 11 on the West Coast. But, I mean, Fiona, if you need us to do it a little later, just for you, we will. But I hope 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific is not too early on a Sunday. That's when it airs. So thank you. Thank you, Steve. And also, folks, really, seriously, it takes 2 seconds. Real Progress.
In action.
The link to subscribe is in the description of this video. There's no reason not all of you shouldn't be subscribed. Go subscribe.
Please.
Subscribe. They got great stuff that you will not see in corporate media. Frankly, most independent media won't cover the stuff they cover. So thank you, Steve, for joining. Looking forward to your show on Sunday. And please, folks, we got 300 people here. Stick around. In a couple minutes, we're going to be premiering Tina's show. This week in Right Wing Insanity. Yeah, of course, we're going to continue covering Democratic Party corruption, but we can't ignore what's going on the right wing. We have to focus on that. I know some leftists say, oh, you're with the Democrats if you cover the Republicans. Well, when there's like a growing white supremacy, violent conspiracy movement, growing fascism, maybe we should cover that too. So I'm looking forward to Tina's show coming up in a few minutes. Like Colin said, just stay on this stream. It should redirect you there. And if not, just come back to the channel in a few minutes and it'll be airing in about 7 minutes from now. Thank you, Steve. Let me read some super chats real quick. Humorous, $2. Rock on, Steve Grumbine. Rock on. Thank you, Humorous. Humorous, $10. We need to create one union for all the rest of the unions. The United Nations of America. That one union can bring all of the unions together for the organization of one great progressive movement. It's an idea. If you don't know, there's a lot of fucking corrupt unions in America. Not the workers, the leadership. So I do worry about one centralized union. Leadership would have to be vetted. Double K, 1999. Thank you so much, Double K. I appreciate that. And as always, folks, please support us. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member for $5 to $10 a month. As you see, we're trying to expand. Tina's hosting a show. Steve's hosting a show. We now have Kim Brown. Obviously, Colin trying to stay on the ground. All of this shit costs money. Please support us if you can. StatusCoup.com/join. $5 to $10 a month. It makes a big difference. All right, stay tuned. Tina's show is up next.